Welcome back, everybody. The Fantasy Football Strategist here. In today's video, we are breaking down 3 running backs that I think you need to buy low on immediately for both redraft and especially for dynasty purposes. I'm also going to be giving you 2 running backs at the end of this video as a bonus that I think can be acquired for relatively cheap. And now some of these 2 specifically of these 3 running backs I'm going to mention probably are not going to be cheap, but I still think they're going to see a drastic increase in both production and market value very soon, but especially by the end of this season. And the first running back in which we will be talking about today is Treyveon Henderson of the New England Patriots. So 22 years old, rookie, 5'10", 202 pounds, relatively small. He had a little bit of an injury history in college. You just don't want this guy to be a Bijan Robinson bell cow type of back. You want him more in your Jahmyr Gibbs type of usage or your early Kamara days where, you're getting this guy 8 to 12 at the most runs per game, and then hopefully at least 5 targets a game. And he is deadly and he will gash you. I mean, we saw this during the preseason. He was my RB2, graded half a point behind Ashton Genty for fantasy football purposes, at least. And I don't think anybody else was higher on Treyveon Henderson. Maybe, but regardless, I was absolutely impressed with what he did given the limited volume. I mean, this guy played 35% of the running back snaps, or of the total snaps on offense, but 35% of the total snaps. That's hardly any. He had 5 carries for 27 yards. That's a robust 5.4 yards per carry. But then if you look at the receptions, he had 6 targets, 6 catches for 24 yards. Now, the efficiency in the pass game was mediocre, and he did have 2 kick returns for 43 yards. I kind of wish they'd take him off of kick return, but that does, for the meantime, provide us with a potential, return touchdown added any given week. He already did it in the preseason. But yeah, in a full PPR setting, over 11 points while only playing 35% of the snaps with 5 rush attempts and 6 receptions. That's pretty impressive in my opinion. And I think that he is bound to have much bigger days ahead. And so let's get into some advanced stats displayed by Treyveon Henderson in week 1. So his average defenders in the box of 7.8 was first among all running backs. So keep in mind, he averaged over 5 yards per carry with the most average defenders in the box. Stacked front carry rate of 40% was second. His true yards per carry, which takes away runs of 10 or more yards, of 5.3 was good for 11th. I'm not sure of the sample size of the total amount of volume necessary for them when they're ranking these. If somebody has 1 carry for 40 yards, I don't know, but regardless, very impressive. 4.6 yards per touch was 17th, which is kind of downtrodden by the reception, 6 for 24. His target share, though, 13.3%. And mind you, that was only playing 35% of the snaps. 13.3% target share. 17 total routes run was 21st. A 34% participation rate. But that's going to be a little bit swayed by the fact that he's so good in pass protection that at times with their offensive line, I think they're going to need him to pass protect, which is fine. It keeps him on the field. His 4 yards per reception were 19th, not particularly impressive, but his 1.41 yards per out run were good for 10th among running backs. Very impressive. Once again, his snap share of 35.2% was 41st among running backs. His 47.8% opportunity share was 33rd among running backs. His 12.4 weighted opportunities were good for 22nd. The higher you are in terms of if you were number 1 in weighted opportunities, that would be the more valuable touches. The team run plays per game of 18 were good for 30th. I think he's going to be a PPR monster. So this is even more so in your PPR settings. I'm saying this guy's a smash buy. 5 carries were 44th. His 6 targets were 5th, though, in such limited total usage in terms of snap totals. And he did have at least 1 red zone touch, which was only good for 38th. They did try Ramondre there. But nonetheless, despite having the most average defenders in the box, his true yards per carry and overall yards per carry were incredibly impressive. He was used extensively in the passing game, all while doing this on only 35% of the snaps played. That's impressive. And so finally, and at least in regards to Treyveon Henderson, I wanted to show you something from Underdog NFL on X. Per Mike Reese, I hope that's how you pronounce his name, the Patriots' RB snap distribution could change heading into week 2. I think it should be changing drastically. If you take a look, though, at the week 1 snaps, Ramondre had 46, Treyveon with 25, and Antonio Gibson with 5 himself. I do think that Antonio Gibson probably deserves a little bit more love, but I think Treyveon Henderson deserves a ton more love at the expense directly of Ramondre Stevenson. There's been whispers of it. The results on the field should speak for themselves. Treyveon Henderson is drastically better than Ramondre Stevenson, but Ramondre does bring a little bit of the power and size element, and he's had some injury issues, but a little bit more durability potentially in those short yardage situations than Treyveon Henderson provides. Although Henderson is very effective in those situations, it's just more of a durability thing. Regardless, this guy's very talented. He should see a drastic increase in workload. He was efficient. He was used extensively in the passing game, and they really lack playmakers. This is the type of player you want to acquire immediately. In redraft, it's a little bit harder to suggest trades because it's kind of just a player for a player. But some sell high running backs potentially would definitely be any Cowboys running back. Javonte Williams obviously had a great week 1. That's somebody I think you should be trying to sell. I don't know if they would sell for Treyveon Henderson, but in redraft, you never know. In Dynasty, I would pay a first, a second, and something else if I had to as a maximum offer to get Treyveon Henderson. I think he could easily float into 2 first territory if he explodes like I think he's going to, especially in a full PPR setting. Nonetheless, this guy is going to put up massive points. He put up over 10 points while only playing 30% of the snaps in week 1, 35%. This guy's going to dominate. The second player on this list is going to be RJ Harvey of the Denver Broncos. I promise there are going to be some guys on this list that are not rookies, but rookies are, to be fair, generally good buy low towards the beginning of their seasons, and people are panicking because of a lack of production, which is generally, in general, deference is given to veteran players, obviously, over rookies, which would explain some of this. But nonetheless, RJ Harvey, in week 1, he only played 29% of the snaps. This is a very similar situation to that of Treyveon Henderson. On 6 carries, he had 70 yards. That's 11.67. He had, I believe, a 50-yard run, which definitely helped his yards per carry, obviously. And in the passing game, on 1 target, had 1 reception. He did lose a yard. In a half PPR, you're grateful because you still get 0.4. In a full point PPR, you get 0.9. In a half point, that kind of sucks, but at least it was only 0.1 lost. But nonetheless, I think this guy is dynamic on the ground. I love his fit in Sean Payton's scheme. He's an excellent zone running back, great cutting ability, great feel for space, explosive. And despite him not having the best week in the passing game, he is usable in the backfield. He can run he can run wheels out of the backfield. You can run screens with him. He can just do little dump offs. I'd say he's an average receiving back, but he has the adequate skills as far as an actual receiver to get the job done. It's just pass protection where I think he needs a little bit more work to become a true 3-down back, but I do think it's easily doable. And he has a 2nd round draft capital where I think that they want that to happen. And now we move on to his advanced stats from week 1. Unlike Treyveon Henderson, he only averaged 6.0 average defenders in the box. That was 40th among running backs. So that's very easy, including a 0% stacked front carry rate, where if you remember, Treyveon Henderson's was 40%. So drastic difference there. And if you look at the yards created, at the very least, what did he do? He took advantage of it. 56 yards created. That is unblocked yardage that you specifically as a runner created yourself. That is a testament to your skill. And his yards created per touch, of 8 was 2nd as well. So explosive. I comped this guy to Shady McCoy for a reason as a runner. We can only hope he has that career in the NFL, but that is the kind of style he has when he runs the football. Now, his true yards per carry of 8.3, which once again takes away runs of 10 or more yards, once again of 8.3 was 3rd among running backs. That's incredibly impressive. His 9.9 yards per touch were good for first as well. Now, you could definitely say limited sample size. That is true, but he's explosive. He just does what he does. I love that. I think everybody could agree you want explosive running backs, right? Looking at his juke rate, his 28.6% was 17th among running backs. That's average. In terms of that's missed tackles forced percentage. His 2 evaded tackles were 28th, but once again, that's a volume stat, and he just didn't receive much volume, so 2 evaded tackles is pretty impressive to me. His explosive rating, which is runs of 15 or more yards or passes of 20 or more yards, was 5th. Once again, which is boosted obviously by the lack of volume. His 1 breakaway runs was 6th. Now, once again, his snap share of 29.7% was 46th among running backs. His 22.6% opportunity share was also 46th. And his weighted opportunities, unlike Treyveon Henderson, is actually quite poor at 5.2, which was 46th among running backs. So he's just not getting, J.K. Dobbins is getting those. The trusted veteran who, while he can't stay healthy, is a talented runner, or at least has been. But the one thing I like about this, and one thing I want to pivot to, is if you look at the team run plays per game, they had 30 this past week. So I do think now that they kind of have running backs that aren't some of the worst in the NFL, I think they are going to want to run the ball quite a bit more. It'll definitely make Bo Nix's life easier, that's for sure. But yeah, he did this on 6 carries and 1 target, which just is not very much volume. I think he's an explosive runner, and I think he's going to dominate when given a little bit more volume to where we can feel comfortable starting him. And I think he's going to get that volume relatively soon, and especially if he continues to do what he did in week 1 in the future. And if you take a look at this post from X, Austin Abbott also agrees, and he points out some of the same stats, but he also has 9th in fantasy points per opportunity of 1.13. And he also says and states that he's 6th in rushing yards at 70, while only playing 29% of the snaps. That's insane. And I completely agree. And I think that this is one of the reasons why you need to try to buy this guy if possible. Just like I mentioned with Henderson, it's harder to kind of suggest trades in redraft. But if you have any questions or if you want to kind of ask, feel free to ask below in the comment section. In Dynasty, I would trade a 1st and a 2nd as a max value. If I was trying to acquire RJ Harvey, I would try to acquire for a little bit cheaper because sometimes guys were getting him in the 2nd round. I know he was creeping up in the late 1st round. So you're probably not going to sell for a 1st. But man, if this guy can just get some more volume, I think he's going to explode on the scene. And I really do think we're going to see a little bit more receiving work out of him. I do think he's J.K. Dobbins, unless he gets injured again, isn't just going to go away entirely, at least. But they drafted RJ Harvey in the 2nd. He immediately exploded on limited volume. I think he's going to be the guy. I think it's going to happen relatively soon. And I think he's going to really start eating into J.K. Dobbins' workload. And I think this is an offense that I want to be a part of under Sean Payton with Bo Nix at quarterback, who's competent from what I've seen in his rookie season. A little bit of a rough start here so far, but a great offensive line and improved weaponry. I think the sky's the limit for this guy. And I want to give a special shout out to my Patreon members. Thank you to Big Hunt, SP, Mage Jack, Infamy MTG, AOYOB, and The Dawn. Without your support, this would not be possible. As you're probably well aware if you've been watching my videos for a while, I cannot get monetized because of the film breakdowns I do, and even just the little videos I have where I have clips of plays in them. They get demonetized every single time, making it, therefore, impossible to collect any revenue. So, obviously, your support is greatly appreciated. And if you are so inclined to become a member, the perks would be you will get access to a private Discord where we have both a real life and fantasy football chat, as well as a voice chat if you just don't want to have to type a bunch of stuff. I'll also give you detailed roster breakdowns and roster reviews where we talk about the strengths and weaknesses of your team. Then we kind of break it down further by looking into the scoring settings themselves and the starting lineup requirements to help you build the best team to help you dominate for years to come. In both Dynasty and then in Redraft, obviously, I'd help you with a good, solid game plan, especially if you know where you're drafting from. Then also give you detailed trade advice based on your specific league settings to help you dominate. Also give you access to private live streams and the ability to not only see videos at least one day early, but also the ability to suggest videos that you would like to be created. So if you would like to support the channel, I would really appreciate it. If not, just please like and subscribe. Let's get back to the video. And the third and final player we're going to be discussing, I promise they weren't all rookies, is Trey Benson of the Arizona Cardinals, 2nd-year running back. In week 1, in a full PPR setting, he had 8.5 points on a 33% snap share. That's impressive. On 8 carries, he had 69 yards, averaging over 8 yards per carry, no touchdown on the ground, but 1 target, 1 reception for 6 yards in the passing game. Fun fact about Trey Benson, Anytime he has been targeted in his 2-year NFL career, he has caught the ball. He has a 100% success rate on targets. But in all seriousness, and the sample size is 7 total targets, so it's kind of a joke. But I do think he's decent in the passing game, and I think he's an explosive runner. And I'll get into a little bit more here why I think he is a screaming buy for us in fantasy. Moving on to some advanced stats. He, much like RJ Harvey, didn't really have an issue with defenders being in the box. His 5.5 average defenders in the box on his carries was 48th, including a 0% stacked front carry rate. So he, obviously the Cardinals have Trey McBride, Marvin Harrison Jr., so they do have threats on the outside to be able to make it difficult for teams to contend with the run game. But he had 125 yards created, which was 3rd among running backs. Once again, this is unblocked yardage. This is you creating out of nothing. His yards created per touch of 13.89, which is wild, was 1st. Limited sample size on the total volume, I do understand, but it's just, those are crazy numbers, man. His 6.0 true yards per carry, which once again takes away runs of 10 or more yards, which took away his explosive run of 6.0, was good for 9th among running backs. Impressive. His yards per touch of 8.3 were 3rd. His juke rate of 33.3% was 14th. That's relatively impressive. His 3 evaded tackles, once again, on limited volume, being 8 carries, was 22nd. So, and that's a volume stat. That's not a per carry stat. His explosive rating of 114.4 was 6th. Once again, that's receptions of 20 or more yards or runs of 15 or more yards. He had 1 breakaway run. Once again, limited volume. That's going to do that to you, making it more impressive that on limited volume, you were able to do so. His 33.3% snap share, once again, was 42nd. His 36% opportunity share was 40th, though. So while that's not an incredible opportunity share, getting almost 40%, being in a 60-40 split already and exploding in week 1 is good for his prospects of increasing his opportunity. Now, James Conner was given the more valuable touches. He out-touched Trey Benson 2-1, I believe, inside the 10-yard line. And so we'll have to see him get more goal line work. He did score a goal line touchdown when Connor was out last year, I believe, or he may have been playing, but he did score one last year. I would hope to see more red zone usage, but James Conner is incredible there, so it makes sense. But the team run plays per game of 27 were good for 10th. 1 week sample size. They do like to run the ball quite a bit, though. So, if James Conner goes down, he is a big candidate to receive a ton of volume, and volume plus explosive runner equals fantasy points. So once again, 8 carries, 1 target, 2 red zone touches, which was good for 22nd. It is good to see the red zone touches because obviously we want him to score touchdowns. And I think that with increased involvement in the run game, which we've already seen, if week 1 is any indication of what we can expect, potentially, hopefully more than week 1 is what we can expect, he's going to be producing a lot more fantasy points than he did for us this past season and gain a ton of value and potentially be a league winner, especially if anything happens to James Conner. And from X, a tweet from Ryan Heath. He said, time to drop all my stats and fantasy takeaways from today's games via fantasy points data. We are so back. So his thing was Trey Benson and James Conner rotated drives as runners with the backfield carry split shaking out as 60-40, like I mentioned. A little bit less than 40% technically, but for all intents and purposes, a 60-40 split. And like I mentioned earlier, James Conner out-touched Benson 2-1 inside the 10. So it's to be expected that the vet who's effective in the red zone would get more than, last year's 3rd-round rookie who was a little bit raw in terms of his vision as a runner and decision-making, but explosive and dangerous in space. But it's still good to see that it wasn't 2-0 or 3-0 rather. I do expect him to see more volume as the season goes on. And once again, if anything happens to James Conner and he misses time, Trey Benson is a league winner. Mark that down. That is a fact. In terms of redraft, I think he might be available depending, on your league. Trading, you wouldn't have to trade hardly anything for this guy. Bench for a bench player might do it. In Dynasty, I would pay a 2nd rounder and maybe a little bit something else extra, or maybe a really, one of those aging, really old running backs, like for instance, maybe a Aaron Jones if you're trying to offload him. I'm not sure that somebody would do that trade, for instance, but yeah, I think in terms of pick value, he's probably worth a second and a little bit more. I think this guy is going to dominate, and I think that he has the potential to increase his value to being over a first, and you could potentially have a big value increase where you buy him low, you sell him high, you profit, or you just keep him and potentially he's a league winner for years to come. Either way, I really like Trey Benson. He's explosive, and I think he's going to kill it this year in fantasy. And a couple more buy low options. Now, Jordan Mason on the right, he didn't perform poorly necessarily. He just didn't have a fantastic game from a total fantasy points perspective. But he got, I believe, 15 carries on the ground, and more than Aaron Jones for sure. And the goal line work. I think this guy is going to be a steady flex play with the potential for much more if anything happens to Aaron Jones. He's in a high-powered offense. There should be a lot of scoring opportunities. This guy is built for it. Aaron Jones is very old. Jordan Mason is very not old. And I think that that is a guy I would be looking to trade for. In a dynasty setting, I would probably, if I was a contender, I would pay a second for Jordan Mason for sure. As far as Bashal Tutin is concerned, so I really liked Bashal Tutin. His missed tackles forced rate was insane in college. He's explosive. His 4.33 40-yard dash tells us that. But one thing I really like, they traded away Tank Bigsby to the Eagles. And so that leaves only LaQuint Allen, Bashal Tutin, and Travis Etienne as the running backs. Travis Etienne looked explosive in week 1. He is a potential trade candidate at some point if they feel comfortable. Maybe not now that they have only 3 running backs. Potentially not, but Etienne is a free agent after this year. So for dynasty purposes especially, there is a chance that they just let him walk and Bashal Tutin replaces Travis Etienne. With Bashal Tutin, I didn't have Etienne as a direct player comp, but they are relatively similar. They're explosive players who excel in zone schemes, dynamic, pluses in the passing game. They create explosive plays like it's nothing, and they're just a great fit for this Liam Cohen offense. In terms of what I would pay for him, I would easily pay a second. If I had to throw in a little bit something else, I probably would. I wouldn't usually do this for running backs with, I believe he had 4th round draft capital, top of the 4th. But it was part of James Gladstone and Liam Cohen's plan offseason specifically to acquire him. Gladstone specifically said that it was part of his hiring process was that this was a guy he was gunning for. They intend to use this guy. He's explosive. He's in a Liam Cohen offense. We saw what Travis Etienne did. If this guy gets the volume, which he already got a little bit of volume in week 1, the sky is the limit. Literally, the sky is the limit. You could see a Devon Achane type of explosion from this guy legitimately if he's given the requisite volume. Regardless, I like both of these guys, and I think you should too. And those are technically 5 total running backs, but 3 main running backs that I think you should be looking to acquire immediately in both redraft and especially in Dynasty. Those were, if you remember, Treyveon Henderson, RJ Harvey, Trey Benson, Bashal Tutin, and Jordan Mason. I think these guys are explosive. Probably a little bit less so Jordan Mason, although very talented, and fantasy points don't care about explosion. It's just they're scored differently depending on the type of player you are. But yeah, I really like these guys. I think they're huge values. I liked all these guys off season. Some of these guys were people I was telling you to try to get in your rookie drafts. Try to do anything you can within reason, as long as it's not a terrible value to get them. But where do you agree? Where do you disagree? Let me know below in the comment section. I'm really curious. Who is your potential buy low candidate that I missed in this video? Let me know below in the comment section. I'm curious to see what the discourse is on some of these running backs that I mentioned in this video. Once again, if you would like to support the Patreon, I'm unable to collect any revenue from these videos due to having film breakdowns and also just having clips of highlights or things from the week in them. So your support is greatly appreciated. If not, if you could just like and subscribe and share the video, I would really appreciate it. Thanks, guys. You have a good day.